Good evening. It's Thursday, the 6th of November. I'm Erin Viner, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. We'd like to inform our viewers that due to a management decision, this coming Sunday, November 9th, our broadcast will be moved to 4 p.m. all 7 days of the week. And in the news, thousands of people attended this afternoon's funeral in the Druze Galilee town of Beit Jan for border police officer Jadan Assad, who was killed in the terror attack at a light rail station in Jerusalem yesterday. The 38-year-old leaves behind a 3-year-old son and a pregnant wife. 5 others wounded in the same attack remain hospitalized. At Ein Kerem's Hadassah Medical Center, 1 victim remains in critical condition and the other is listed in moderate. 2 others at Sharet Tzedek Medical Center are listed in serious condition and the other as moderately injured. Jerusalem remains under alert amid the possibility of more terror strikes. Today, IBA's Ariel Sullivan visited the site of yesterday's vehicular attack and brings us this report.
Jerusalemites woke to beefed-up security in the streets and concrete blocks at the light rail stations, all part of the efforts to give the residents a better sense of security.
So it does make you feel more secure, you know, because when you have like more policemen around, so they could just like shoot him faster. On the other hand, they can't prevent every single, man or Arab that like just decides with his car, you know.
There is a sense of fear in Jerusalem. The authorities are trying to improve that by placing an enormous amount of security forces at this station and other places around the city. There's fear, but people are getting on with their lives. But it's also clear that this sort of deployment of forces can't last forever.
I got used to it. It's on and off all the time. So it's not like I'm changing my habits. I'm going to school now, to a university on my bike. I hope I won't get run over or something like that, but what can I do about it? I mean, just try to go on with my daily life.
This is a common occurrence. Unfortunately, we're living with this on almost a daily basis, and we have to continue with life.
Are you scared for yourself right now?
I'm not scared for myself. We have to continue with life. You can't live being scared.
This man says he understands the frustration of the Arab residents of East Jerusalem.
I understand because living the way they do is not easy at all. But on the other hand, to hurt citizens, it's not a way to, to fight against it. But I don't think ever a solution will come.
Do you go to East Jerusalem?
Sometimes, yeah, to eat.
There were a few Arabs taking the light rail. This Arab man said he had no choice. We aren't going to sit at home, and neither are the Jews. We have to get on with our lives.
I live in Pisgat Ze'ev, and I'm going through this world of where there were several terror attacks in the recent time. But I don't feel any difference because there is a police car over here, and I feel just the same, actually.
See, like after these accidents happen, I can't call them accidents, it's more like terror attacks, that their leaders don't calm down the situation. You see, after such a situation, our leaders, like Netanyahu and our leaders, just like try to calm down the situation, like please don't try to take law in your hands and do whatever, like just try to keep on the laws.
Every time something happens, it's looking like this, and then after a while it's just coming back to routine. So like 3 days from now, they're not gonna be here anymore.
For the meantime, the security presence is high. So much so, it appears that there are more police than passengers on the light rail. Ariel O'Sullivan for IBA News.
Family members of Palestinian terrorist Ibrahim al-Akari say that they are not at all sorry about his vehicular attack in Jerusalem and that the Jews deserved what happened. The family has set up a traditional mourning tent at their home in the Shuafat neighborhood of Jerusalem. When asked about al-Akari having cold-bloodedly driven his van into a group of Israeli policemen and then civilians at the light rail station, his brother said that Ibrahim's message was that extremist Jews should stay away from the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Al-Akari was shot dead by police after he left his van to hit passers-by with a metal rod. An initial IDF investigation indicates that the wounding of IDF soldiers in Gush Etzion last night may have been a hit-and-run accident rather than a vehicular terror attack. 23-year-old driver Hammam al-Masalme today turned himself into police amid a manhunt that has been ongoing since the incident when the large white commercial van he was driving ran into 3 IDF soldiers near an army pillbox. Roadblocks were immediately erected as part of the search for the suspect after he fled the scene, and the abandoned vehicle was discovered by security forces during the night. The soldiers remain at the Hadassah Ein Kerem Hospital in Jerusalem, with one in serious condition, one listed in moderate to serious condition, and one who suffered relatively light wounds. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reiterated again today that Israel will not change the status quo on the Temple Mount, and Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman blamed right-wing politicians for exploiting tensions in the capital. IBA's Eli Wogelenter has more.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office repeated today that there is no change regarding a ban on Jewish prayer at the Temple Mount and promised not to alter that policy. Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman told Army Radio this morning that Israeli politicians like Bayit Yehudi MK Shuli Mualim, seen here walking on the Temple Mount on Sunday, should not inflame the situation by calling for Jews to be able to pray there. And he slammed those MKs for exploiting the situation for their own political gains. MK Tzipi Chotoveli from Likud said that Lieberman does not understand that the Palestinians want to change the status quo on the holy site and forbid Jews from ever entering. In a blatant attempt to erase any reference to the Jewish character of the site, the PLO issued a statement yesterday urging reporters not to use the term Temple Mount when covering events at the complex, instead to refer to the site as the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound or Haram al-Sharif Noble Sanctuary.
Temple Mount is the holiest place to the Jewish nation. Jews should pray and fulfill their human rights and their religious rights on the mountain. And I would say this is the right time, now more than ever, to deliver this message to the world. Peace in the Middle East will happen only if the 3 religions will be able to pray on Temple Mount.
The compound was briefly closed to visitors early yesterday after Palestinians threw rocks and set off fireworks at security forces near the Mughrabi Gate, the only gate through which non-Muslims may enter the site. Security forces responded with stun grenades and, according to some reports, sponge-coated rubber bullets. At least 1 Palestinian was seriously wounded. The Muslim Waqf, which oversees the Temple Mount, claimed that Israeli police went into the mosque during its crackdown. Police found a stash of stones, bottles, and Molotov cocktails that the demonstrators had prepared inside the mosque in preparation for further violence. Jewish activists insist they will keep going up to the Mount.
Muslims are trying to rule the world, and they're not interested in having anyone else pray to their God. They only want Muslims. We're not going to allow that. This is the Jewish state. This is the holiest site to the Jewish people, and we will pray here.
Israeli forces have beefed up security ahead of a planned demonstration and march to the Temple Mount late this afternoon. Eli Wogelenter, IBA News.
Jordan has announced its intentions to lodge a formal complaint at the United Nations Security Council over what officials in Amman are calling Israeli violations in Jerusalem. Following a meeting with U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, Jordanian Foreign Minister Nasser Judah said that his country recalled its ambassador to Israel because of the alleged actions, particularly those carried out at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. Kerry didn't comment about the decision, but called on regional leaders to implement measures to calm the situation.
We have recalled our ambassador in Tel Aviv for consultation. I took that decision this morning after the government decided that what we have seen in the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, and not just in the last 24 hours, but over the last period in general, is just way beyond the limits. We have sent repeated messages to Israel directly and indirectly that Jerusalem is a red line, and these continuous violations and incursions and stopping people from worshipping freely and allowing extremists to come in under the protection of Israeli police and so many other violations. We have said that this is a red line. Jordan, His Majesty the King, is the custodian of Christian and Muslim holy places in Jerusalem, and these violations are infuriating the emotions and the sensitivity of 1.5 billion Muslims around the world. So I think this was a clear message today that recalling our ambassador for consultation is an indication of the seriousness of the situation. Calm has to be restored. Israel has to respect the sanctity of the holy sites, and I think this will resonate today.
And I condemn today's terrorist act of somebody driving in another car into innocent people standing on the roadside. You know, that is not just a terrorist act and an act of an atrocity, but it only makes matters worse. It only raises tensions. There are those who oppose peace, and people need to not allow those who oppose peace to control what is happening in the region. The peacemakers need to control it, and they need to take steps to begin to move in a different direction. That's what's important.
The Foreign Ministry today here in Jerusalem issued a statement questioning the withdrawal of the Jordanian ambassador, asking why Amman's criticism wasn't instead directed at Palestinian incitement.
We regret the decision of the Jordanians. We think it's a mistake. What we would like to see is a condemnation of the incitement coming out of Ramallah. The amount of incitement coming from Ramallah, from President Abbas, is quite shocking. And what one would like to see from across the board is people, level-headed, responsible leaders, calling for a calming down and a lowering of emotions, as the Prime Minister of Israel has done, so that somehow we can find a way to bring the Palestinians back to the negotiating table.
Reporter Alexandra Jen asked Dr. Jonathan Spire of the Herzliya Interdisciplinary Center about the significance of Jordan's diplomatic move.
Of course, Israel and Jordan are close allies, and when there's any breakdown in the friendship, then this is serious. At the same time, it's important to put it in context. Jordan sees itself as, and is seen in the Muslim world as, the guardian, so to speak, of the Temple Mount, of the Haram al-Sharif area from a Muslim point of view. And when there is a general perception in the Muslim world that something bad is happening on the Temple Mount, that Israel is behaving wrongly and so on, this is at least the perception in the Muslim world, then Jordan feels somewhat obligated to take a public stance which is very hardline and very defiant in that regard, in spite of the actual absence, of course, of any real attempt on the part of Israel to change the status quo in the Temple Mount. That's what this reflects. It reflects a public stance that Jordan feels required to take given the nature of its responsibilities as seen by the Muslim world. It does not represent, in my view, a substantive, real and likely to be lasting deterioration in relations between Israel and Jordan.
In fact, Prime Minister Netanyahu just made a secret trip to Amman this past week to hold talks with Jordanian King Abdullah. So what does this mean?
Well, it says that with regard to security issues and the really crucial issues facing the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, that relations are very, very close. That is to say, the real concerns of Jordan, substantive, not symbolic, are not related to the Temple Mount. They're related rather to the massive influx of Syrian refugees that have taken place in the last 3 years, and the real possibility that the very extreme Islamist organization, Jabhat al-Nusra or Islamic State, could, in the coming months, seek to begin activities in Jordan itself. That's what Jordan is really very concerned about. And in that regard, Israel and Jordan are very much on the same side. And Israel's support and involvement is of great importance to Jordan. But that tends to take place behind the scenes because of the public issues and pressures which I was talking about.
Since the outbreak of the Arab Spring, Jordan has managed to remain relatively stable. Is ISIS posing any threats to the monarchy at this point?
I think that the Islamist organizations coming out of Syria, ISIS and Jabhat al-Nusra, pose a security threat to the peace of Jordan and Jordanian citizens. That is to say, it is quite possible or indeed likely that these organizations could start carrying out terrorist attacks in Jordan in the months ahead. Having said that, if we're talking about the stability of the monarchy from a political point of view, do these organizations represent a potential political threat to the continued existence of the monarchy? In my view, the answer is no. It's important to bear in mind that the things which are tearing Iraq and Syria apart, the ethnic and sectarian divisions, the involvement of Iran, the involvement of Saudi Arabia and so on, these don't really apply in Jordan, which is a generally homogenous society of Sunni Arabs. And therefore, I think on the bottom level, so to speak, Jordan is not in danger politically, but in security terms, yes.
During his visit to Cyprus, Foreign Minister Lieberman expressed support of Nicosia's attempts to explore offshore natural gas reserves. Northern Cyprus is occupied by a rogue government of ethnic Turks, and Ankara has strongly objected to any such exploration by Cyprus. Over the past decade, Cyprus discovered sizable deposits south of the island in the direction of Israel, which has also located massive quantities of underwater hydrocarbon gas. Nicosia is accusing Ankara of having deployed a research vessel to collect seismic data in the area as a possible precursor for Turkey's launching of its own exploration initiative.
We respect the integrity of Cyprus. We assure that you have your exclusive rights to explore in your economic zone all the gas or oil reserves, and we think that it's unnecessary. Additional, it's really unnecessary to add another tension to all problems of the Middle East, despite very sensitive and complicated situation now. Cyprus tries to be responsible and to act with international community, and I hope that EU has enough power to be a real mediator and to take a reasonable position regarding the last dispute and exploration in your economic zone.
If I had testified against Ehud Olmert in the earlier trials, he would not have come out of it well. That was today's testimony from the former Prime Minister's ex-bureau chief, Shula Zakin, during cross-examination in the retrial of the Talansky corruption case. Regarding suspicion that Olmert attempted to bribe her, Zakin said that she accepted money from Olmert on behalf of her family because she believed that she would be sent to jail in his place over charges related to another case known as the Holy Land Affair. The International Criminal Court will not investigate the 2010 IDF raid on a Mavi Marmara ship when 9 Turkish activists were killed during their attempts to breach the naval blockade on the Gaza Strip. International prosecutors said that despite grounds to believe that war crimes may have been committed by IDF commandos during the operation, they decided that the case is beyond their jurisdiction. The verdict comes as a major disappointment for anti-Israel activists who have made repeated attempts to involve the Hague-based Human Rights Court on the issue. Turning to Washington, where U.S. President Barack Obama announced that despite the Republican victory and gaining control of both houses of Congress, there's been no change in the core principles of his administration. He acknowledged that Congress may now pass some legislation that he's not willing to sign, and that the legislators won't always like all of the actions that he'll take, which is natural, he said, because that's how democracy works. Regarding foreign policy, the U.S. President said that he is committed to beginning work with Congress toward a new military plan to defeat Islamist State forces in Syria and Iraq. Addressing ongoing negotiations toward reaching a long-term Iranian nuclear accord, Obama said that it remains unclear whether the West can successfully conclude a deal by the impending November 24th deadline.
Whether we can actually get a deal done, we're going to have to find out over the next 3 to 4 weeks. We have presented to them a framework that would allow them to meet their peaceful energy needs, and if in fact what their leadership says, that they don't want to develop a nuclear weapon, if that is in fact true, then they've got an avenue here to provide that assurance to the world community and in a progressive, step-by-step, verifiable way, allow them to get out from under sanctions so that they can re-enter as full-fledged members of the international community.
In Syria, the demolition of the 12 remaining production facilities for chemical weapons operated by the regime of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad are about to be destroyed. That's the word from Australia's ambassador to the United Nations, Gary Quinlan, who's also the acting Security Council president, speaking to reporters after a briefing from the UN Special Advisor on Damascus' chemical weapons program.
There are 7 hangars and 5 underground tunnels which need to be destroyed. Destruction is scheduled to commence later this month and likely to be completed probably around the summer of next year, 2015. We also had a report on preparations to destroy a further facility declared by Syria, in addition to those 12, which was a ricin production facility which we hadn't known about at an earlier stage.
In other regional news, a bomb blast aboard an Egyptian train in the Nile Delta north of Cairo killed 4 people and wounded 9. Security officials say that the blast took place shortly before midnight last night and that 2 policemen are among those killed. Aboard another train in the Cairo suburb of Al-Marg, 3 people were wounded when a homemade bomb was detonated. There's been no immediate claims of responsibility for the attacks, which investigators say bear the hallmarks of Islamist militants who are battling the government of Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Taking a look at local finance, and the shekel today gained strength against all major foreign currencies, while share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange were mixed. Here's a look at the late afternoon numbers. IBA weather team says we can expect another slight rise in temperatures under cloudy skies tomorrow, accompanied by dry, windy conditions, particularly in the north. Here's the forecast to home and abroad for the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this evening. I'll be back tomorrow at our Friday time of 6 o'clock to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. But before closing, this scheduling announcement that starting on Sunday, our broadcast is being moved to 4 p.m. all 7 days of the week. I'm Erin Viner, wishing you a good evening and shalom from Jerusalem.